Now things are really getting challenging, because not only do we not have denominators that are the same, we have these quadratics floating around. But that's not too bad. We're going to do what we always do with quadratics. We're going to try and factor them. And these will be factorable. So let's go ahead. I'm going to pause the video. When you come back, you're going to see that I factored this and factored this. So just try and beat me to the punch on that. And maybe if you're at it, try and guess what I'm going to do next after that too. That'd be awesome if you could do that. So after some thinking, I realized that these are going to factor this way. I do want to point something out, by the way, especially if you struggle with factoring. With these types of problems, there's often going to be a commonality between the things that you factored. So for example, if you factored this correctly and we're struggling with this, the fact that this had a 5x minus 4 and then I see another 5x minus 4 over here, I wasn't surprised that that happened at all, because they'll usually have at least one factor in common. They don't have to, but for problems that we're giving you, they usually will. So now then, the next thing is you probably guess is to go ahead and try to find the least common denominator. And the idea here is to look at each denominator separately, and if it's in this denominator, it's going to be part of my LCD. And I'm looking at this is one thing, this is one thing, one thing, and one thing. So as I look at this denominator, I notice that this has a 5x minus 4, so my LCD will have to have a 5x minus 4. This has an x plus 1, so my LCD will have to have an x plus 1. And I'm done looking at this denominator. So now I'm onto this denominator. This has a 5x minus 4, so my LCD should have a 5x minus 4. Oh, and it already does. So I don't need to put anything else in here because of that. But this has an x minus 2. My LCD does not have an x minus 2. So I'll have to also have an x minus 2. And you know, the idea is that I want to have two fractions that have the same denominator. So I'm going to look at each one of these, consider what the least common denominator is, and if this is missing something, I'm going to give it that missing piece. If this is missing something, I'm going to give it that missing piece. So why don't you try and guess what I'm going to do next? I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. You should pause it too, and think about what might happen next. Our next step is to compare what we have with what we need to have in the denominator, and as I said before, give it the missing piece. So this fellow's missing an x minus 2. His top and bottom gets an x minus 2. And this fellow's missing the x plus 1. So the top and bottom gets an x plus 1. And as I look at these two denominators, I see, while the things are not in the same order, they both have a 5x minus 4. They now both have an x minus 2. They now both have an x plus 1, and the tops have been adjusted appropriately. So the next step is to go ahead and, at this point you can kind of, you need to carry your denominator around with you, but you can not really think about it too much, and I'm definitely not going to multiply this thing out. That'd be just a pain in the butt. And the order of these terms does not matter at all. And the top, I'm going to distribute, I'm going to combine like terms. If ever I see a problem where there's a minus sign here instead, I'm going to watch that minus sign carefully and distribute that as well. But this is a plus sign, so I could be a little bit lazier and know that I'm going to have 3x minus 6 plus 2x plus 2. And when I finish combining all my like terms, 3x and 2x make 5x, negative 6 and 2 make negative 4. And that entire thing will be over 5x minus 4 times x plus 1 times x minus 2. And, oh, look at that. Those punks. I'm not quite done, because this entire numerator happens to exactly match this portion of the denominator. So these actually cancel off. And now my final answer, since the entire top canceled off, but it technically was multiplied by 1, my final answer really is 1 over quantity x plus 1, x minus 2. And that will be my final answer.